All right, Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for grace and mercy, Lord. Lord, I thank you for everything you're doing in this ministry, Father, in our lives, Lord, and we just give you honor and praise for it all, Lord. Lord, we just ask you to lead, guide, and direct us in everything that we do. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right, the first thing we're going to do, I talked about it a few weeks ago. These are goals. When I was over West Virginia, each year we would sit down and do goals with all of the staff and interns. So we're all ministry-wide going to do goals for each other, for ourselves, not for each other. So on a piece of paper or your phone or whatever, these are the goals that you have to come up with. The first one is a 6-month goal. What you want to accomplish in your spiritual life, in your personal life, and in your ministry life. And listen, these have to be measurable goals. Just don't put pray more or work harder. These need to be measurable goals. So like for ministerial, like in the ministry, you could say, I want to increase my position, or do better fundraising, or preach a chapel, or something like that. Personal, you could say get my driver's license. Now these are 6-month goals. They shouldn't be buy a house unless you're very close to buying a house. And then spiritually, how do you want to spiritually mature over this next 6 months? But remember, they need to be measurable. While praying more is a good answer, how can you measure praying more? One way of doing that, just giving you a cheat, is your relationship with Christ is closer. So more fruit of your prayer life, so to speak. You're not getting mad as much. You're not yelling at your spouse as much. You're not being mean to students as much, All right, then you've got 1-year goals. Same thing. Personal, spiritual, ministerially. And I say ministerially because we're about to get to 5-year goals. And let's face it, not everyone plans on being here in 5 years. But you will be in some form of ministry because you're a Christian. And all Christians have some form of ministry in their life at all times, whether you work at Walmart or McDonald's or wherever. So the next thing is 5-year goals. Personal, ministerially, spiritually. A 1-year goal for myself is, for me and my wife, is I would like to purchase or build a home in Tennessee within the next years. That's our measurable goal, to start building or purchasing a house. Ministerially, which is also professionally, I personally would like to have a gym in the works, businesses in the works, more property bought. Spiritually, I would like to be preaching on a higher level, not so much rehab preaching, more church, mature preaching. And that's a year. That's not 6 months, because let's face it, that's something that I can't really accomplish in 6 months because that requires a greater deal of study. I lack in that right now because honestly, I don't make time for it, So those are like my year. So each one of these are measurable, because you'll be able to tell what I'm preaching in a year. You'll be able to tell if we've purchased a home in a year. You'll be able to tell if I put forth effort to start a business or a gym or a garage or something in a year. All right, so next Wednesday, let's see. Next Tuesday, we're going to be doing live stream from West Virginia. So next Tuesday, I won't be here, but we will be here. We got somewhere to watch it here? Maybe? All right, so next Tuesday, we'll give about 10 or 15 minutes at the start of class that y'all will be going over these goals with your directors. So like the first 10 or 15 minutes, Pastor Mindy and Pastor Brandon will be up here, and y'all will be sharing with them some of what you've wrote down, and they'll check them and send them, and that's how it will be at every center. The directors will spend the first 10 or 15 minutes checking and talking about it. And that's because what we're going to talk about today is a pillar of the family is accountability. This is one of the big things that we talk about to students, but we have to understand that accountability is a huge thing in our lives until the day that we die. And yes, that sucks. But I'm not talking about asking to go to the bathroom. I'm not talking about asking to go into a store. I'm talking about accountability. And accountability is the quality or the state of being accountable. An obligation, a willingness to accept responsibility and to account for one's actions. That's what accountability is taking responsibility for what you do. You know, yesterday there was this guy that got caught in the ministry smoking, and he was caught. You know, a staff member was caught. You know, no way to deny it or whatever. First time, you know, and if he would have took accountability, took consequences for his actions, it wouldn't have been that bad. But he didn't. Refused to have a blood test, just straight out denied it. So the consequences to his actions was being let go, you know, given a choice to become a student or to be let go. And he made the decision, you know, and that's what accountability would have been, saying, hey, I smoked, you know, let's deal with this. But instead he refused accountability. So his directors were forced into a place of accountability. So that's what we have to understand, but we're going to talk more about accountability, not necessarily in the ministry, but in the family, in our day-to-day lives. Because listen, I'm accountable to a lot of people. I'm accountable to God. I'm accountable to Apostle. I'm accountable to Pastor Wanell and the board. But I'm also accountable to each and every one of you. And what I mean by that is I have an obligation to be responsible for each and every one of you. If Pastor Brandon does something crazy, out of line, it's my responsibility to take care of Pastor Brandon. I have to be accountable to him. And that's part of my obligation of being in the position that I am. And see, we always think that once we get to these titles that we don't have to be accountable to anybody. But I'm accountable for their souls. I'm accountable for their sakes. I'm accountable for James Trout. I'm accountable for every student out there, all throughout the United States, wherever our centers are. I'm accountable for them. But I'm also accountable for my wife. I'm accountable for my kids. My wife really convicted me a few weeks ago. You know, I'm off work. I'm at Fun Fest. If you don't know what Fun Fest is, it's this thing they do in Kingsport. It's weird. We go sit under a tree and eat food truck. It's like 8 days long. I commit to 1 day. That's all they get me because I believe it's weird. I sit under a tree in my little folding chair. They go get me a baked potato and we watch the kids play. I'm not sure what it is this year, Boys to Men or somebody played. It's weird. To me, it's crazy. But to Vanessa's family, and I'm talking her whole family, it's something special, you know. And it's cool. Over the last 10 years, I've become to enjoy it, you know. But, you know me, I'm off work. They ain't nobody there ministry related, you know. Nobody. Well, Abby was there, but she don't count. There was no rehab people. There was no students, nothing. And when I was on a trip, I was buying shirts, just T-shirts, and I was at a weightlifting competition, and I needed a shirt, not a tank top. So I bought it, and it may or may not have said Miller across the front of it and had Miller sign on it. You know, I didn't drink, so I didn't think anything about it. So when we was at this thing, and I forget how my wife said it afterwards. She didn't say nothing while we were there, but we were talking later. And she said, "It embarrassed you, didn't it?" And I was like, "No, it was a shirt." And she was like, "All of my family was there and they know what we do." And that was all she said. She didn't shame me. She didn't condemn me. It wasn't nothing. It was literally, she probably don't even know how bad it messed me up. But it made me think, they do know what I do. They do. And I used to get so mad because people in the church, Vanessa, be like, "What would they think?" I don't give a crap what they think. But I'm accountable for them. I'm a part of that covenant. I'm a part of that people. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a lot of times we think that it's just us, that it has no bearing on nothing. But you have to ask yourself, who are you really accountable for? And that's a huge, deep level, you know? So we have to understand that we need accountability, you know? That it's not just about drinking and smoking. It's not about cheating on your wife or cheating on your spouse. It's not about all of the sins. But I need accountability with prayer sometimes. I need accountability with not wearing a stupid shirt. You know, and that is literally just an obligation, a willingness to take responsibility for what I chose. I could have been like, "It's a shirt, it didn't mean nothing." But now her cousin, who may think that drinking's okay and back and forth with church and this or not, he could have looked at my shirt and said, "Well, Adam's a preacher wearing a Miller shirt. That's okay." Then he starts drinking, you know. Am I willing to take accountability for my actions there? The answer for all of us should be yes. You know. So let's talk about it a little further. Accountability, things that accountability is going to help. Strong accountability partnerships are an essential part of every Christian's life. It's important to think a little differently about the role accountability serves. Quite often in those circles, we think of accountability as being about inviting people into your life to make sure that you're not doing unhealthy stuff. Let's face it, that's what we all believe, that accountability is to prevent us from doing unhealthy stuff. And while it is to curb unhealthy behavior, unproductive behavior, it's also an element of accountability in relationships. It shouldn't be the whole of it. When accountability is healthy, it can be a productive part of a discipleship process. And we're going to talk about different ways that accountability can make your life richer. But first, we're going to step on toes. All right, so like accountability is crazy because me and my wife talk about stuff, okay? So and now listen, some of you women's going to get mad, some of you men's going to get mad because it's not what we've been taught. And I truly believe this was from the Lord. Me and my wife's accountable for each other, all right? So if my wife says, "I think we should do this," but I think, "No, we should go buy a new car," you know, my wife submits, which she does. So we go buy this new car that we have no need for. And I'm only saying a new car because every other day she's sending me a picture of a new car. So we go buy this new car. 3 months later, my wife is like, "Things are tight. We can't save as much." Well, I'm a stickler for saving money because I was dirt poor, you know. So like I need some money in the bank, you know. So 3 months later, we can't save as much. Why? I made my wife submit, and I made a decision to buy a new car. I have to be accountable to my wife. I can't fuss at her for getting her nails done or her lifestyle because I chose for us to buy a car. That's what accountability is. I can't fuss at it, but you can't go get your hair done. I told her this morning, what was it? Oh, she hid she bought me some fudge. Listen, I'm the world's worst at dieting. Like, I hate it, bro. Dieting sucks, you know. I work out with the best of them, you know, and I'll run until my heart gives out and lift until I can't lift no more. But when it comes to food, screw it. I'm eating, you know, and that's just how it is. So my wife hides my peanut butter. She hides my Nutella. She bought me fudge and hid it, you know. She bought it, you know. And we was joking this morning. And that's good because I need that accountability. I mean, I need that accountability. And she said, I hid it. I said, all right, next time you start spending money, I'm going to hide it, you know, because she's definitely been on a spending spree here lately, which is okay. But that accountability is what we need. All right, so now girls, when you say, pick somewhere to go eat, and he picks somewhere to go eat and you don't like it, you got to go eat. I mean, that's your obligation, you know. I use that one because the real one's hard. You got kids. Listen, you got kids. You got kids, and then you marry somebody else. And then your husband's mean to your kid that, you know, that ain't his. But you came into partnership with him. So even though you might want to pretend like that kid ain't his, that kid is his. My brother's dealing with it right now. You know, he has a child with his wife that's not his, but is his. And this child's making poor choices. And my brother is not me. He does not laugh and joke and play. He is black and white. It's either wrong or right. I mean, it's how it is, you know. And when I say being mean, I don't mean actually being mean. I'm talking about discipline, correction, you know. Are you willing to take that obligation of being accountable to your husband when he tells you no? That you can't spend the money or you can't do something. But men, we have to understand that obligation as well. You know, the umbrella of it is God, man, wife, children. If anybody gets out of line, somebody's getting wet. It's how we was always taught, you know. So just as much as we want our wives to submit to us, we have to be responsible for making those decisions. That means if the poop hits the fan, that we're the ones that deal with it. Yesterday, my wife was like, what's wrong? And I was like, bro, you don't even want to deal with it. It's like, in fact, I text, there's no point in both of us having a headache. A few years ago, she would have kept on until I told her. But now she understands, and she said, okay. And that was the end of it. Because there was no need for her to deal with what I was dealing with. However, if she has a problem and she says, hey, I need help, then it's my duty and my obligation to help. Same way, if it would have been something about women or something I wasn't sure, money, marketing, stuff that my wife knows what to do, instead of me doing it, I have an obligation to ask my wife for her input. So that's what accountability is on the family level, you know. And another part of accountability on the family level is hard because me and Chris Hawkins and Chrissy, we were talking when they were in, and you know, they've been sober a long time. What, 7 or 8 years? I mean, they've been sober a long time. But when they go home, you know, there's always like wandering, you know, their parents and their brothers and siblings, they're always like, you know, trying to protect them. When I go home, my mom puts her pain medicine up. And I mean, I've been sober 11 years, you know. Not so much now, it's nothing. But we have to understand accountability with our family as well. You know, like if somebody is struggling, we are accountable for protecting them. So like if you have a student that you know struggles with, tobacco or drinking or stealing money or something like that, you should not go in the store and shop. Not saying that people do that or sit in the van all day, That's our job, to be accountable for them. Because listen, and this scares me, and this is nowhere near notes, but this scares me. One day we will stand before Jesus and be accountable for every word that we spoke. And listen, I've said some foolishness, saved and unsaved, sober and unsober, I just hope ain't nobody watching. I hope it's me and Jesus in a private room, But we'll be accountable for every word that we spoke. We'll be accountable for every student that we've ever had. That scares me, for simply the things that I know that I could have done better. Times that I sat in the van and gave them the opportunity to take money. Times that I've left them alone and give them opportunities to drink. We'll be accountable for every dollar we've ever spent. Them scratch-offs, they'll get you, bro. Them energy drinks out of the change, soap and shampoo out of a money bag. I mean, these are the things that we'll be accountable for. And I know it got kind of heavy all of a sudden, but accountability is serious. I mean, it's a pillar of our family. Because listen, if I'm not going to be accountable to my wife, I'm not going to be accountable to Pastor Brandon. If I'm not going to be accountable to Pastor Brandon, I'm not going to be accountable to a student. And that's just how it is. Accountability is a pillar because, listen, and it's not about doing right or wrong. It's about protecting not only yourself, but everyone that you're accountable for. So accountability helps curb unproductive behavior. Ain't nobody in here unproductive, are they? My wife hates it because I'll sit in Pastor Brandon's office and I'll be on my phone and she'll be like, "You ain't doing nothing." Pastor Mindy probably tells him the same thing. "You ain't doing nothing. I work so hard and you're sitting up there in that office. Go counsel somebody." No, I don't want to. I'm counseling them on my phone and it's causing me to want to drink. I couldn't imagine doing it face to face. I got one right now that just texted. He said, "Can we counsel?" No, I don't want to today. I need to go to the gym, But it's good because there'll be times when I am sitting in there not doing nothing. There'll be times when I'm being unproductive, and that accountability is good. So think about how many times that you've been sitting around doing nothing, and Pastor Josh comes, he's like, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" "I'm working hard." No, you're not. You're on Facebook or TikTok scrolling. He knows what you're doing because he does it in his office with the door shut too. But accountability will help curb unproductive behavior. In Hebrews 10, it says, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. The Bible tells us clearly that we should be an accountability for unproductive behavior. In this verse, he tells us how we may spur, how we may encourage. Listen, I know people get mad when we talk about getting driver's license, but listen, you should get your freaking driver's license. I cannot imagine letting my wife drive me around all the time, But you're like, they harp on it all the time about getting your license. Well, listen, without a driver's license, you can't really move forward. But It is true, because like right now, we have a trash pickup business that we're going to start. I got the flyers made. I got the truck getting titled and tagged. We're ready to go. But the person I want to lead it don't have a driver's license. So it's going to be hard to start it with no driver's license, because you're going to have to pull a student, and then you might as well pay the student because the staff can't even drive, you know. Right? And then we'll get in trouble from Apostle. I know how we can make it happen. But a license is the next step into being more productive. You know, so that's what we have to understand, is like when people is harping and trying to spur you to become more productive, it's not a bad accountability. It's a good thing. Having people close enough to you to tell you about your struggles and missteps is what it's all about. Listen, I have Chris Hawkins and Greg Brown. When I start doing dumb stuff, we're close enough to where they're like, hey, we probably don't need to do that. Pastor Brandon and Pastor Josh will be there one day too, to where they'll see me and they'll be like, well, we need to reel this in a little bit. You know, the first step is a dumpster company, and then a gym, and then this. And before long, I'm crazy, you know. We've got 47 things going on and 3 people in the classroom, and Apostle's going to kill me, you know. So if we have to have these types of people that's close enough to see our struggle and to encourage us. My wife is the greatest, because listen, I am the slowest person when it comes to taking the next step. Everybody's like, let's open up a new center. And I'm over here figuring out the numbers and the logistics, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's time. I mean, God could be holding a sign in the sky, and I'd be like, the numbers don't add up yet. And I have my wife and Apostle and other people, they're like spurring me to go on, you know. Moving to Tennessee was just that, you know. There was so much stuff that lined up and so many people that encouraged and moved forward, you know. So accountability will help curb unproductive behavior. And listen, I'll be honest, my productivity had ceased in West Virginia. I didn't have to do nothing. I literally would get up, take my kids to school, go walk on a treadmill, go to the gym and hang out. Now, I got to minister with staff and students, but as far as moving forward, maturing in a Christian lifestyle, I was cool. You know, I was still doing my job and making sure everything was taken care of, but as far as moving forward, being productive, it was over. I didn't have to. It flowed so smooth, you know. That's why new things are so important. Listen, if you're doing the same crap that you was doing a year ago, you probably need kicked in the hind end, you know. If you're in the same department and not moving forward, you should probably ask yourself, why ain't I being spurred to move forward? And chances are it's because you ain't got a driver's license. Anyway. Accountability shouldn't just be about identifying and harping on one another's weaknesses. Life-giving accountability is more than going through a checklist of sins and bads. It's about allowing people to get close enough to us that they understand our temptations, our triggers, and help us navigate our lives in a positive and a healthy way. So, do you understand that a lot of times we prevent accountability because we won't let people in? They're being critical of me. See, the Lord's really convicting me because my wife has been really critical of me lately, and I've been a little girl. It's like every little thing she says to me, I'm like, that hurt my feelings. Literally, like little ever nitpick. This morning I'm praying. I didn't sleep good at all last night. She said, I told her, I said, I have to teach class. She said, are you going to be able to stay awake? And I got butthurt, even though I was sleeping in between songs on my front porch trying to pray. I mean, I was probably snoring, really. So we have to be vulnerable enough to let people in so we can be accountable to somebody. If we're shut off, then people don't even know what's wrong with us, and they just think it's something normal. So accountability will help curb unproductive behavior. I could talk about that for days, but we're going to go on. Accountability allows you to receive helpful counsel. Do you understand that you'll never receive from anybody that you don't trust? If you don't trust them, you'll not receive from them. You'll not convince me otherwise either. Because if I don't trust you, I'm not going to receive counsel from you. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise will listen to advice. Proverbs 12 and 15. One of the most powerful things about the Christian church is the opportunity we have to see things from vantage points of others. We all have a tendency to miss stuff or ignore information that don't align with our perspective. That's why we need input from others who are just as sincere and passionate about the Lord as we are. Do you understand that if we don't allow people in our lives with accountability, that we'll never see things from a different perspective? I know I used this before, but it's just true. A lot of times people look at the Tennessee Center from an outside perspective, and they get their feelings hurt and offended and mad. I used to too. I'd be like, bro, they got it made. You know, just to be real, they got it whooped. Apostles down there, they ain't got to do nothing. They got it beat. But if you don't allow yourself a vantage point of accountability to hear counsel from other people and see it from a different perspective, then you'll always be looking at one-sided. It's like the picture of a 9 that's wrote upside down. If you're standing this way, it's a 9. But if you flip it this way, it's a 6. It's all about perspective. Accountability is all about perspective. Are they trying to harp on me and tear me down, or do they love me? If you don't let them in, you'll always think that they just harping on me, trying to hurt you, try to criticize you, try to steal your position. But if you let them in and you understand that they love you, they're trying to take care of you and help you, then it changes it and allows you to understand counsel and take counsel. This is another case. This situation is where it's only possible to receive when you're transparent. That's one of the things that I hate the most, is when I can see that Jamie's struggling, and I'm like, what's wrong, bro? But we've not built a rapport yet, and he's like, nothing, I'm fine, and walks off. I know that something's wrong, but have I become vulnerable enough? Have I become accountable enough? Have I become obligated enough with him to give wise counsel? Have I been transparent enough? And listen, I'm the most transparent person ever, you know. I'll tell all of my crap on live stream, YouTube, you know. But there's some of us that ain't, you know. And I'm not saying be vulnerable with every person. Most people don't know my struggles, my wife and some close friends. But I'm not saying go out and just blab everything to everyone. But we have to be transparent. I can harp on the driver's license because, listen, I'm 38-year-old, and I've not had a driver's license 2 times since I was 16. And I hated all 7 days. My wife had to drive me, and it was the most humiliating thing ever. She drove me to the beach, and I thought I was going to die. You know, it was horrible, bro. So I can be transparent there because, listen, horrible situation. But we have to allow accountability in our life so we can receive counsel. That means that if Pastor Brandon comes up to you and corrects you in something, you shouldn't be like, he's just trying to be mean to me. You should stop and say, is this really what's going on? Am I being lazy watching TikToks avoiding people? Am I being open? A lot of times the reason that we don't receive counsel is because we've shut off to someone else. He got a new car. Now he's selling it. He don't make good sense. Let's see what he buys next. Listen, I'm sure people in this room thought that. And I know people on live streams thought that because I thought that. He's an idiot, you know. Why is he buying another car? You know. Then people look at me and they're like, well, why does he buy a side-by-side? He don't even ride it, you know. He's buying another set of golf clubs today in West Virginia and ain't even played golf 2 times this whole year. You know, I am. It's a West Virginia bag. The bag alone's worth $300. Leave me alone. But, at the house, I'm going to play golf this week. If it stops raining, maybe. But if we close ourselves off to people, I can never receive counsel from Pastor Brandon. You never receive counsel from me. That's why I try to make people laugh. That's why I try to be humorous. That's why I try to be the way I am. Because listen, I can be like Nazi, and a lot of times people don't receive. So we have to have accountability in order to receive wise counsel. The next one is really good. Do you understand that accountability will help you achieve your goals? That's the whole reason I had you write your goals down first. That's why you're going to tell your directors your goals next week. And the directors are going to send me their goals next week because I'm going to help the directors be accountable for their goals. And that's why I told y'all my 1 year goal. That way you can help me be accountable to my 1 year goal. Accountability will always help you achieve your goals because in Ephesians 2 it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do." He has prepared for us to do good works. We're His handiworks. And it's our duty to help each other achieve those goals. Ephesians 2:10. Yep. Do you understand that some of the best goals require effort and perspiration, working it forward? If you're the sole carrier of that dream, it can get lonely. Do you understand that some goals are never meant for you to carry alone? We always wanted an auto garage. I always wanted businesses. I never really wanted an auto garage because I don't know nothing about cars. But I always wanted businesses. Chris Hawkins wanted an auto garage. I could have never started a business without Chris Hawkins. Chris Hawkins could have never started that business without Adam Smith. I never wanted to open a gym because I'm kind of fat. I go to Planet 6 months and I'm off 6 months. We could have never opened a gym without my wife and Zach Mills. Those dreams and goals would have never taken place. My wife had a dream of opening coffee shops because of Alaska. And it was the dumbest crap I'd ever heard in my entire life. And she would have not accomplished that dream had it not been for her persistence being a thorn in my side. So a lot of times our goals require help from other people. My goals require help from other people. Because listen, I'm not very good at much, but I am good at putting the right people at the right place. I'm extremely good at logistics. And see, for us to make our goals successful, sometimes they require the help of other people. Listen, I'm not going to invest my money and my time in Jamie and a garage if I have no accountability over Jamie. If he's not being accountable somehow to me and my money, then I'm not going to do it. If me and Pastor Brandy open a gym and it's my money and my time, her effort, and we're not accountable to each other, I'm not going to do it. It's just how it has to be. If me and Pastor Brandon or Pastor Josh, we're all involved in something, if we're not accountable to each other, the goal will never succeed. It'll never come to fruition. It'll never manifest. And I'm not saying every goal is like that, but think about the goals that you have worked so long and so hard on by yourself and seem so far away. Now, what if you invited somebody that you could be accountable to? Not only would they encourage you, they would do some legwork. Yesterday, we went and looked at 2 buildings in Morristown for a garage or a gym. We put in legwork. So that's what we have to understand about accountability is sometimes it's a good thing. It helps us. My wife, dude, she's so good at administration stuff. And I get in trouble a lot because we was doing an IOP and it was this and that, and I was like, it can't be that friggin' hard. And then she handed me one checklist, and I gave it back to her and said, hire whoever you need. I mean, I didn't know nothing about it. Had no desire to know nothing about it. It was hard. So sometimes when we think something is really easy that we can accomplish on our own, but we're not getting anywhere, you need accountability. You need somebody there to check on you. Accountability keeps you engaged. You ever have a dream and then you forget about it about halfway through? I used to be the world's worst. I've had t-shirt shops and wood shops and primitive furniture shops and vinyl shops and heat press shops, and I was going to, what's that called? That sign we did for North Carolina. I don't even remember. Another shop, all of these dreams and goals and bright ideas. Never could get a co-signer, so I lost focus. Pallet shops, there we go. That's a good one. I love buying the stuff from the auction, but I don't like selling it. I'd rather my wife do it. In fact, I bought a warehouse just to do it, and yeah, it's just sitting there right now. But accountability will keep you engaged. In Romans 12, it says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, impatient in affliction, faithful in your prayers. Maintaining the same passion and intensity in your faith isn't easy. A lot of people will point at their college years as being the season when they were most engaged, involved, and enthusiastic. But over time, daily responsibilities of life crowd out some of our zeal. You remember when you first got saved, when you first came to treatment, when you was first on fire for the Lord, and then you had to start calling Walmarts, or you started having to go fundraising 3 days a week. Remember when you'd have to cook and get up early for all these people? When you got your kids back, that zeal dies down. You lose that fire. When you preach to the same people, doing the same thing every day. They won't stop smoking. They won't stop eating kratom. Your staff make your head hurt because they won't get their driver's license. It's draining. Accountability keeps you engaged. Listen, if you are unmarried, if you do not have a spouse, the smartest decision ever is to get a spouse that is polar opposite of you. When I'm ready to quit and say screw it all, my wife is like, no, we can't. And when my wife is like, let it burn to the ground, I'm like, no, we can't. In 11 years or 10 years, only twice have we been on the same page. We'll let it burn down for a couple hours. Only twice in 10 years we've been like, screw it, let it burn. And then we snapped out of it fast. But you need a spouse that keeps you engaged. If you're cool with sitting on the couch and getting fat, you need a spouse that's going to be like, get up, fatty, time to go to the gym. Right, Dorothy? When you're not trying to preach, when you're not trying to, listen, you need a spouse that's going to make you do chapels. You need a spouse that's going to make you do sermons. You need a spouse that's going to make you get up and pray. You got to find somebody that's going to be accountable to you to keep you engaged in this life. I'm telling you, it's of the utmost importance. In ministry, you need to have a friend. The other day, me and Chris was talking back and forth, and I stopped. I was like, nope, you ain't going to gaslight me no more. I was ready to kill people, take heads off. But most of the time, Chris is like, just breathe, son, it'll be okay. And then when Chris is like taking heads off, yesterday, Chris was like, I'm taking their head off. And I was like, just breathe. And I spent 30 minutes trying to come up with a reason why the person hadn't done what they done. And it just didn't work. They were stupid. But I was there to calm, to help him engage. You know, and that's what we have to be. We have to keep this fire and zeal. So the last thing, finding healthy accountability partners. Listen, this is where it's hard. You should have accountability partners. Your spouse is your number one accountability partner. They're going to hold you accountable to things that nobody else knows. They're going to be able to be a voice at all times. If you can't receive correction from your spouse, male or female, you should not marry them if you haven't already. And if you have already married them, my wife does inner healing. Listen, if I can't take correction and accountability from my wife, I won't be able to do it from God. And I'm not saying that we're out of order because, listen, my wife submits to me about everything. If she's busting my head about stuff and I tell her to hush, she stops. But if your spouse cannot correct or be your accountability, don't marry them if you haven't already. And if you have married them already, there's stuff that you need to deal with. Because listen, I have to be able to be accountable to my wife. That's the first one of healthy accountability partners. And I'm serious. And like it's if Josh can't hold Brandy accountable, and Brandy can't hold Josh accountable, then they need to talk it together or something, you know, because it's just how it is. Second, ministry accountability. Listen, we have to be open. I'm relying in this season for Pastor Brandon and Pastor Josh to keep me accountable. If I'm like, screw it, send them, let them mow, you know, or screw it, send them, let them pick up trash. I'm relying on them to hold me accountable, be like, Apostle gonna get us, you know, or be like, they need the classroom. Same way for me. If they're going crazy, I need to be able to be like, Josh, we don't need to do this no more. And thirdly, you need to have accountability that you don't like. That's the one that's the most important. The person that you would not kick it with. You can think I'm crazy, but you need somebody that you would not go on a boat with, that you wouldn't ride side by sides with, that you wouldn't hang out with on a daily basis. You need accountability that does not see things the way that you do. Because listen, the way I see things ain't right all the time. The way Pastor Brandon sees things ain't right all the time. We need an outside opinion. I love Brandon more. Me and him's cool. We'd kick it right side by sides, go on a boat, whatever. But he sees things from a different perspective than I do. There's things that I would do that he would not. There's things that he does that I think is retarded. But it works. Bubby. But it works. So I have an accountability that's nothing like me. And that's the most important, is the one that's nothing like you. We're friends. Brandon's my homie. If I'm doing something dumb, he's like, hey, bro, you can stop. We're that type of relationship. But he wears boots outside his pants. He wears flat bill hats. We are polar opposites in those areas. And it's important because, listen, that accountability encourages me, pushes me to do other things. Think outside of a box. Tim Kraft is a guy in Parkersburg. He's my dude. Polar opposites in every aspect. He runs treatment centers totally different way than I would. Runs church totally different way than I would. But every time he tells me something, he's like, hey, bro, I'm doing this. I'm like, wow, that's a good idea. He's like, hey, are you still doing this? But now when I'm bad, he's like, hey, bro, you all right? I see this in you. And I receive it. I listen to it. And that's why accountability is so important. Listen, your key accountability people, your spouse, your ministry people, and people that's nobody like you, that's nothing like you. Andrew would be a good one for most of the people in this room. Listen, Andrew's my accountability for years. For years. If Pastor Andrew said, hey, listen, bro, are you all right? I see this. I would stop and listen. No question. It's just how it is. And that's why accountability is so important. All right? So we're going to display accountability because next week we're going to be accountable for our goals. And then we're going to be encouraged to do our goals. And then we're going to be encouraged to achieve our goals. And then we're going to be encouraged to engage our goals. That means when Pastor Brandon and Pastor Mindy's like, hey, how close are you to achieving this goal? You're going to receive their counsel because you have submitted an obligation to them being your accountability in this season of your lives. That means even if you don't like them, you'll nod your head and be like, this is where I'm at. And if they correct you and encourage you, you're going to receive it. Because they care for you. They don't want your job. They want you to take their job. Listen, I promise they want somebody to take their job. Because when somebody takes their job, they can move higher. And that's what the goal of accountability is, for all of us to move higher. Higher and higher and higher. I know I just got my position, but I pray that somebody takes it swiftly. Because when they do, I go up. I want everybody to succeed because, listen, nobody in here should be living paycheck to paycheck. Nobody. When you win, I win. When you fail, I fail. When they win, I win. When they lose, I lose. That's what accountability is. When North Carolina wins, I win. When California wins, I win. It's what accountability is. It's having that obligation to be a family and a community. Any questions, comments, advice? You ever hold your peace? Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for grace and mercy, Lord. Lord, I just ask you, Father, to allow us to have a different perspective on accountability, that it's not a negative but a positive. And Father, I just ask you to lead, guide, and direct us in everything that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.